Welcome to the Wellness Empowerment Project. I'm Trish.
And I'm Julie. We are two nurses exploring holistic healing and wellness practices to empower you to be the leader of your own health. Join us as we try out new things, or as we call it, weird shit, and have some fun along the way. Hello, and welcome to the Wellness Empowerment Project. Hey, Trish, how are you?
Good. It's technically August when we're recording this. However, we are looking to September already.
And it's the start of the school year. Beginning in August, it's okay getting everything ready for school prep. For me, it's this whole new season. It's like it's a new beginning. I know that's because every year for so many years, started back to school in the fall. So my brain is wrapped around new beginnings. What do I want to do? Just different goals that is starting to formulate in my mind.
It's funny. I've always thought of September with that new school year as being the start of a new year, even more than quote unquote New Year's. But with not going to school starting in September anymore, I've also aligned it with my birthday because my birthday's in September and your birthday's in September.
Yes.
I think that's been like, okay, this is a better way to start off a new year at the birthday time. So I call
I
it my pre-New Year's. We can start really thinking about what do I want to achieve and not necessarily my next year of birth and the next new year. It is also starting to look at the quarter 4. Where are we with all those goals that we talked about or that we wanted to achieve in the beginning of the year, in the beginning of January?
I also start to think, okay, it's like the last 90 to 100 days of the year. And what did I start the new year off with? And how can I end really strong? Like gear up and get ready for the next year because New Year's is one of my favorite holidays. Again, it's like this new birth, rebirth kind of mentality. I like the idea of ending strong, leading up to the next phase, and just really thinking about my goals. Did I succeed in my goals or did I hate to say the F word? Did I fail?
The new F word. Yeah, and it's funny you even say that because I was getting a massage from one of our listeners, and we started this whole conversation on failure. Obviously, this could go in so many different directions, but first it made me think about how many times this fear of failure has been ingrained in us, even just as little as those red Fs on a paper in school, if anyone got any of those. Even a friend of mine that's a teacher right now, she even said to me a month ago, and she was like, "Oh, yeah, I don't use red pens." And I'm not going to go into why, but from when I was a kid, the first thing I thought of was like, yeah, because she probably at some point got an F or a D in that big red pen, or you received some feedback and your whole paper's marked up in that red pen. It's a negative association, and she doesn't want to continue that, her now being a teacher as well. But it makes us think also, how often are we doing things because we're just afraid of quote unquote failing?
I think that's so prevalent. There's so many associations and emotions that go into that big red F on your paper. And even if that's just a psychological big red F in your brain that just reverberates over and over, I didn't do it, I didn't get it done, or it didn't turn out exactly as I had planned it to. I think that can either stop you completely from even starting or trying, or just halts the entire process. Maybe your first go wasn't exactly as you thought, but should you have been successful in one go?
Yeah. Is that even a realistic expectation? And the other thing too is when we start looking at how much is fear, the fear of failure fueling. Oof, lots of F. Fear of failure fueling what we're doing or what we're trying to achieve. Yeah, it can go either way, right? You could try it, not be successful, be like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore because you had so much tied up in this achievement of this one specific thing. Or it could be the opposite where it looks like it motivates you. And I'm saying looks because you're like, no, I'm going to keep trying. or I need to figure this out. You're doing it like your life depends on it. But when it's motivated by the fear behind it, you're very like tight, you're very rigid. It's almost like life or death that you're pushing through this. That's when you can easily get into burnout. You start with all this energy, but then you end up blessed. You have nothing left to continue to doing this. The point where you've achieved the goal, but at what cost? Can you even enjoy it at this point anymore? Because it's like you fought for it for so long and for so hard, and now you're just so exhausted. And what did I do this for now?
I think it's really interesting that you use the word rigid because when you look at just the traditional definition of failure, it's so black and white. You either succeeded or you did not. There's no room for any other, there's no
Option.
gray. There's no option,
No
right?
option.
And so it's a yes or a no. Sometimes I hear this in conversations with my teenage sons who are at the stage of their life where things are so black and white. And wait a minute, life and people and the human experience is not so black and white. There's a continuum. And really, what are you trying to achieve? Yes, there's the metric, but then there's also the journey. I know some people don't like the word journey, but it's the path that you're traveling while you're learning and obtaining skills and experiences and perspective. It's really about not only how do you define failure, but how do you define success?
I think that when we choose to define failure as not getting this specific outcome as a direct result from this specific action, we're allowing success to be very narrowly defined, just as you are narrowly defining failure. So, with that said, if we want to look at things, I think, in a little more expansive way, if we would like to not be so rigid, if we want to approach a problem with less rigidity, and we want it to feel more fun and playful, we also need to realign a little bit of what our, I don't say expectations are, but what our definitions are, or maybe take failure out of the equation altogether. Because if you really want to achieve that goal that you're desiring, and I'm seeing goal, but really, maybe it's not like this rigid A, B equals C. Maybe it's this is what I want to attain, but there's so many different ways of me getting there. Let's have it be okay that the first way that you try to get there may not be the right way or the way that works for you. It may work for someone else. It's okay to try again and try again. When you expand that, failure can literally mean when you decide to stop working towards a specific goal.
The timeline piece in itself is what can actually define success or failure just in that.
Hmm.
I need to do this. I need to do X by Y time. And sometimes in life, it takes you longer to get to Y or to get the X. And Y is now out the window and you're on to Z. And there are certainly situations where you do have a timeline and there's no question. And so I don't necessarily want to say that it's bad to recognize that you may have failed to meet that timeline to help you continue to go because life doesn't stop. And so sometimes opportunities close based on timeline. But you have to step back and get that more expansive look and perspective of what you're trying to achieve because you have achieved something, not look exactly how you thought it would be in the beginning.
Yeah, and it makes me think of SMART goals when you were we all love those corporate SMART goals, right? Like, especially if you've ever worked in administration. And I'm being facetious.
I,
We got
I
to get
hate SMART
here
goals.
every year and let's make our SMART goals and so specific, measurable. And here's the thing. I think there's a you used the word like you didn't want something to be labeled as bad. And the reality is everything can be good and everything could be bad. At the end of the day, I think there's a time and a place for everything. That's why I think when we're using the word goal, is it the goal that you desire? What are we looking for in that goal? And maybe there's some goals that a SMART goal would be helpful to attain, right? Figuring out how my new computer is working. That would be a great SMART goal for me to have before our next recording. But if you're doing something else, trying to learn a new skill, putting a time frame to it may not be the best model. It may be the number of hours I'm practicing. It may be I'm going to show up and it may look different every time, but at least I'm showing up. That's a very general show up, not mean you just show up and don't do anything. Yeah, I think there's a time where time there's a time where we want to put a time limit to something, but there's also a time where it's more appropriate to just be like, okay, let me just show up. Let me just collect a number of hours. Let me collect a number of experiences. Let me just try these different ways and let's see what happens before I take those next steps.
Yeah, there's different steps towards your goal, and some of them you're better off having a SMART goal because it is very tasky and it is a smaller piece of the bigger whole to help you get to the bigger whole.
Yes, I would agree with that completely, which now makes me think, wow, how many SMART goals did we write that were really not this tasky?
So many. I'm
You know,
thinking so many.
and how many of them did we really like at the end of the year, right? Everyone's, no one really attained, no one really focused on the SMART goal anymore because there were bigger fish to fry. Or we started down this path and this happened. So something else ended up being a bigger focus, which really leads me to believe that SMART goals are great when you have a really direct your path. It's a very tangible, direct goal, and you need to get from here to here, and you really know the general steps of what you have to do. You may not have done it before. I have to reach out to this IT person, call in the husband, take time to try these things. And the reality, I call the husband first, and you know the path to get there, which I feel like, and a lot of times when we're trying to achieve a goal, it's something new and different we haven't done before. We may not know what's coming in our path. We need to be open to being like, okay, I may only know the next step ahead in order to get to something larger, and I don't know what's in between. I just got to trust that I need to try this and learn from it before I continue on.
It also really makes me feel like a way for me to approach the bigger thing that I'm trying to achieve is that approach where you paint a picture of what is right or what that will look like at the end of the thing that you want to achieve. And so it's
A vision board.
not a vision board, but I guess you could use a vision board towards it, but really thinking through, okay, I'm trying to think of an example. I want to be in the best shape of my life by this time. Okay, so what does that actually mean? What does that look like? What does that look like with what you're eating every day? What does that look like in how you're resting and sleeping and just going through all of the different aspects of what it looks like, not just the physical outcome, but the work and everything that goes into the everyday to achieve that one goal. And then you start to break down those little pieces of the picture into more task oriented items to get you to that place.
Right. And a SMART goal would be great to be like, okay, I want to make sure I'm exercising 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. And I want to work up to whatever, right? In the first 2 weeks. Who knows what happens? Maybe when you start to focus on the diet portion, things change a little bit. Now you're like, wait, I had this bigger, wait, we went out to dinner. Wait, I didn't have all these options on the menu. What's my second? What does this
Mhm.
look like when these things happen?
Yeah. You could also equate it to something like if you're building a business, what do you want that business to look like when it's actually successful and up and running? And how do you want those client interactions to be? What do you want your hours of work to be? And where do you want to work? And just different pieces like that of how you want it to actually look when it comes together and you are quote unquote successful. What does successful look like?
Does it, when we say look like, it's not necessarily the brick and mortar. Sometimes it's like, how does it feel in your body? How do you feel waking up and doing this one thing every single day? Are you doing it every single day? How are you going to be balancing it? What does it look like as a part of the rest of your life? What does your day look like? What does your calendar look like? And
Mhm.
success may not mean you're booked 9 to 5 with calls. It may be in 4 calls on one day, then you actually are squeezing in a workshop and you're going outside or you're doing all these different things. The success could be not necessarily, oh, building a business. It could be, this is how I want to live my life.
Yeah.
And business may be part of it, may not be the whole thing.
I was just listening to another podcast today, and they were talking about how you should build the perfect day. It's an exercise in what does that look like and feel like, and what are you doing? All the way from the moment that you wake up. When you wake up, where are you? So if this is the perfect day, where are you? Is there anybody in the room with you? What do you hear? What do you smell when you're in bed? How do you feel? What does your body feel like? If this is the perfect day, when you open your eyes, like, what does the room look like? What are the paintings on the wall? And I thought, wow, that's really a fascinating exercise. It could take you quite a while to really go through all of your senses and every kind of shift and moment throughout your day as to what that looks like. And then you start to carefully craft towards that. What does that look like for you? How do you get there?
I think the most important piece of what you just said was that the question of what does that perfect day look like? I think most people don't even think of, oh, I could even have a perfect day because we just get into the same routine. We get into the
Hmm.
same habits, we get the same expectation. But how often are we pulling ourselves out to think of the bigger picture? You reminded me of something that I do with a lot of my clients is I'll bring them down a journey 3 to 6 months in the future and have them envision what life could actually like look, feel, taste if they achieved or are in the process of achieving what they're saying that they desire. A lot of times they all leave feeling very powerful and very excited and it's lit you up. But how many times have we actually taken the time before stating this is my goal, this is what I want to achieve, to really be like, okay, how does this really feel in my body? Am I really excited? Is this really when I go? Can I envision my life being like this in the future? Or are we just saying this is my goal because this is what it should be?
Yeah, there's so much to just so much mundaneness in a lot of the things that we're trying to do in our own lives. When we just approach it that way, I wonder if that's part of the reason why people don't actually meet their goals because they haven't taken the time to actually really think about, is this worth my time? Do
Well,
I
and
really want to do this?
and have they taken a moment to really be like, let me envision this. Let me see how this feels. Does this truly excite me? Am I even the reason that I want to achieve this goal? Or is there something else that's telling me to do this? Or am I doing because I feel like I should or I'm supposed to?
Let's explore that a little. What do you think when you're either at work or even at your home in your personal life? There are some things that you're trying to do that don't light you up. Is this exercise that we're talking about, would that be a good strategy for some things that are just meh?
There's two ways I think to look at that, right? I think if you have this bigger vision that totally like lights you up, yeah, there's some things you need to do that aren't exciting. I'm just going to say it like tech issues. Tech is part of my business, it's part of my job. Does it light me up to deal with tech issues? No, it does not. I feel like it's sometimes draining, but I also feel like it's a necessary evil. I also know that once I fix it, things will be easier. And I also have accepted that this is part of it. At the same flip side, I also could sit there and be completely grateful that I have the opportunity to use tech so we can reach more people. We can have conversations. Before we did this call, I was just having a coaching call with someone out in California. And if we did not have all this tech, that would not happen. We also could take it from a place of, yeah, this is my issue, but grateful it's my issue. Because if it wasn't my issue, I wouldn't have just had this conversation.
It's funny because I'm thinking about at my regular job, we have a really big construction project that we're diving into. There are a lot of moving pieces, a lot of different people that we're coordinating with, and it's a big project. And I'm thinking, am I able to do this? Yes, I have a lot of teams around me to make sure that we get this done. But there are different moments where I'm dreading it. And I'm like, okay, let's think about What is this going to feel like and look like when it's all done?
Yeah.
I just take myself on a little mental journey, a little mental trip of what it's going to look like when it's done and why it's so important, what it's going to feel like for our patients, for our staff. And that helps to recenter me when I think about not just, oh, it's done, check the box, but what is it actually, what is the space going to feel like when we're done?
Hmm.
And it's those pieces that are more emotionally tied, I feel like, that help me to go, okay, we got this. We can do this. Pull in the people, ask the questions, follow up.
Well, we need to. We need to tie into an emotion in order for us to keep going, which is the opposite of us operating from the state of fear of failure and just running. I feel like when you're going from that, just to circle back from that place of like fear of failure, you're running to get it done. So you almost don't have to deal with it anymore. For coming at it from the space of the joy, the excitement, the gratitude, able to see that from the bigger picture, it helps you move through things, I think, in a much more graceful way. And of course, to throw in the nervous system, because I love it.
I
If
was
we're
going to
coming,
say, wouldn't be Trish without
I
the nervous
know,
system.
I know. My poor yoga students, it comes up at point, and I'm like, and to tie this in the nervous system, because God forbid I not talk about it in every class. But if we're operating from the fear of failure and we just want to get this done, biologically, we're more constricted, right? We're probably in that sympathetic mode. We're in that hurry, hurry, rush, fight or flight, hurry to get it done. When you're in that state, you're actually functioning in the lower levels of the brain because that portion of the brain is just trying to keep you alive because it doesn't know the difference between the tiger running at you and you just like running from this problem to try to finish something. Whereas if we're able to come to this place from this heartfelt, emotional excitement, connection, and joy, and we can bring that in when we are circulating through problems from that emotional space, we're able to keep our bodies more in that parasympathetic mode, that more restful mode, that more relaxed and open. And when we're in that state, the frontal cortex, that executive function, that problem solving portion of the brain is actually able to be accessed.
Exactly. Because when you're so tight and you're in that reptilian brain, your neurons are not firing to
Yeah,
give you or to help you get to a better decision,
that's right.
better choice to navigate the ups and the downs.
Exactly. They're firing. They're just not firing in the area of the brain that you need it to be actively problem solving.
Right.
And that's when we start spinning our wheels.
For sure. Have you ever read Simon Sinek's book, The Infinite Game?
I don't think I've read that particular one.
This is one of his one book that's like my favorite book that he's written. I
Ooh,
like it more than his first book.
really? Huh.
Yeah. And he describes the infinite game as, and I'm going to botch it up a little bit, but I'm just going to, I'm just going
Okay.
to try and explain it. It's when you have known and unknown players, there's changeable rules and there is no end. Your objective is not necessarily to win, but to keep playing. I feel like by redefining how you're approaching what you're trying to achieve as not necessarily winning, but to keep going, that changes how you handle and how you approach everything.
I think that quote is a perfect way to close this. Perfect. It is. It really is.
Okay. There you go. We've ended our podcast.
There we go. Celebrate our birthday with us, everyone. It's
Yes.
also the month when we launched the podcast. So many things to celebrate in September.
Yes. We're redefining how this podcast is going to be, right? So
Yes.
that it's successful and so that it functions for us in the way that supports us in the way we want to be.
And it's fun. It was the first time that we've recorded in many months.
Yeah.
You guys don't know this because we've still been putting out episodes, but
Yeah. We haven't had a recording of just us in a while.
yeah, been a long time because we planned ahead.
Those SMART goals.
The SMART goals led the way. Yes.
Thanks for joining. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, subscribe, and share with a friend. Want to learn more about a specific topic? Drop us a line on our website and we can explore it deeper with you.